I want to give you a quick introduction to Selenium. So a lot of what we do in this lab is scrape data off the internet, usually administrative data, often from either the Indian government or the US government or whatever other government happens to have it that we need it. The problem is that sometimes data on a website are in a form that's a little bit difficult to get. Sometimes it will not use absolute URLs, which is what we like to do when we're usually just scraping things sort of hard-coded. Sometimes it will involve going through a form of some sort. Sometimes the links will update dynamically. Sometimes it will rely on cookies. So in all these cases, it's very hard to try to scrape things by sort of guessing what their URLs will be and then downloading the HTML. In a case like this, you really need to trick the website into thinking a human being is browsing through it. And that's where Selenium comes in handy. Selenium allows you to basically let your script take over a browser, either an actual browser or a virtual browser if you want to do this in the background, and operate it as though you are operating the browser yourself. Except that, of course, Selenium doesn't ever get tired, doesn't ever make mistakes, etc., or at least it only makes the mistakes that you code into it. So here's one example. So this is the State Election Commission of Uttarakhand. This is a state in India, and they are recording the results of village council elections here. So what we really want is to go through, so let's suppose we're looking at the 2014 election, and so now these are all different districts, take my word for it, and so these here are giving the results for different village elections. So these are the ones where it was contested, these are the cases where someone stood and they were unopposed, and these are the cases where nobody actually even won. So it's basically as of now unfilled. So I know all of this by knowing some Hindi and also using Google Translate. Down here, this is all stuff we're not interested in. This is at a different type of, these are basically district council elections, and these are sub-district council elections. So we don't need this stuff down here. We just are interested in this. Now within this, we are interested in first this whole set of results. So this is telling us, the sub-district, the name of the village council, the whether it was reserved or not for a disadvantaged group. This is the name of the winning candidate, the symbol that they were able to use. This is the number of votes they got. This is the name of the runner-up, whether the symbol they had, the number of votes they got, and then the margin between them. So we want to get this. This tells us for every village council, basically the winner, the runner-up, and the margin of votes they had. And then we also, if you go in a little bit deeper, see this takes you to actually detailed results, where this will tell you for each candidate. So this is the first ranked candidate's name. So this is Mahesh Singh. This is the name of either the father or, if it's a woman, the husband. Yes, India, sexist. Newsflash. This is the name of the husband or the father. This is more information, the vote difference. So this is telling you all that. This is some additional information about the district. So basically we want to get not only the summary on the previous page, but also this more detailed information about every election. Now the challenge here is that if you were to try to just go to any of these links, so although it looks like these links are hard-coded, it turns out that you can see from this, it's only telling you the block and the village council and the election type, but it's not telling you which election, because that's sort of stored in the cookies in the background, and it's a little bit difficult. There might be a way to actually simulate cookies, but I don't know how to do that, but I do know how to use Selenium. So how are we going to do this? So you should get to know the inspect panel in Chrome. This will become your best friend. So there are different ways to identify things that Selenium can use to identify things to click on them. One is the XPath. So if we look at this, we'll right click on this element here so you can see it's highlighting over here. So just to tell you, you are looking at this link. If you go to copy, you can see copy XPath. And so if you were to paste this, you'll see it tells you, okay, it's identifying it based on the unit ID or whatever, but basically this is a unique reference to this thing on the page. And Selenium can use this to click on stuff. So let's go through, look at the simple script I wrote. So if you go through the script, you can see up here there's a bunch of stuff we're importing. So the key thing is Selenium, the WebDriver, and this function called select is also, I guess in this script we're actually not using it, so I won't need it here, but I'll talk about it in a little bit. This is beautiful soup, always useful for parsing, so combining beautiful soup and Selenium is extremely powerful. This time function here is useful for pausing, so on some websites it takes time for them to actually fully load, and so using a pause can actually be helpful. And these are sort of more standard things. Now, here we are telling it the base path. Here, these are, you might recognize this, this is actually the XPath of that 2014 election, that link right over here. These are actually the XPaths of the other elections we're interested in, so that would be this one over here, and then also this, which is not a URL, it's actually a button, believe it or not, but it nevertheless has an XPath, just like the other one right here. So our script over here, storing all of those, and also it's useful, we'll just use this to set up folders in a moment. These are just the years of the elections that we're looking at. So I'm setting a save path here, and so I'm going to actually, this is for running it on the remote server, so I'm going to look over here at my own computer, and let me change this over to 0. Okay, so here we have a few lambda functions. These are useful. So this is a function that will click on an element if you pass it the XPath. So in X, if you give it the XPath, it'll find, so browser, this is the, as we'll see in a moment. So let me just go down here. So when we start out, the very first thing we do when the actual execution of the script begins is to start the WebDriver. So this is basically what Selenium uses to create a fake web browser. So in this case, it'll actually be like a real instance of Chrome that the Python script can operate as though it is a user. Sometimes it's useful to use another WebDriver called Phantom.js. This is a WebDriver that runs a browser that actually doesn't appear on the screen, so it's sort of invisible, hence the name Phantom.js. Now anyways, this browser is the name of the WebDriver, so up here we're basically saying, WebDriver, please find us the element that has the XPath X, and so this is going to return a element of some sort, and then we're clicking on it. Now, there are a few other ways that you can click on an element to find it. One is to use the ID. So if we go back here to our elements over here, you can see that this has an ID. Right over here, it's GP 2015. So we could have clicked on this using the ID instead of the XPath. In this case, I chose to use the XPath just because I'm cool like that. But that was an alternative, and it does the same thing. It finds it. You pass this lambda function an element, or rather an ID. So it's basically a string that's the ID, and it'll find it and click on it. The other possibility is to click on something based on the text. I don't think I'm going to actually use this in this function, but I have it here anyway. So this is specifically for clicking on links. So if you pass it the text of a URL, it'll try to find that and click on it. In this function, I would have liked to have used this function, but it's a little bit difficult because a lot of the links are, as you saw before, as I was saying, I would have liked to have used the link text just because that's a bit more robust, but in this case, because the link text is in foreign characters, Python sometimes has issues with that. Anyways, I'll show you in a moment how you can actually click on something using the URL itself. But anyways, so let's just walk through this. Very simple. So this is a function just going to check condition, so whether the href of an element, so this is actually a beautiful soup element, checking whether that includes these words. This is, again, checking whether the href includes some words. This is just making sure the element is what we want. Sometimes we'll collect a bunch of URLs. Some of them are the ones we're interested in, some of them we're not. This is a nice little function to make the browser go back. So this is like if you click the back button on your browser. Just a simple function to save the HTML of a page once you've got it. And this is a simple function that tries to get a URL and then gives 5 tries, and if not, then it gives up. Okay, so if we give the option that we want it to be remote, we use the Phantom.js browser, otherwise we use the Chrome driver. Now we're going to basically loop through all of these elections. So remember I showed you that list of base paths a moment ago. So we're going to go through each election in that. That's going to give us an XPath. And we're going to pull out the associated year with that through this counter we have here. We're going to get the URL of the base page every time we go through an election. This is a simple function. It tells the browser, the Chrome driver, to sort of wait a few seconds for things to load up. It's called an implicit wait because if things load up faster, it'll go ahead. Sometimes an implicit wait is useful, sometimes a hard wait is better. Alright, so now in this thing election, we have an XPath, and so we're going to click on the XPath. Then we'll wait a few seconds for it to load up, the page to load up, and then we're going to grab the HTML of the page, so the page source, and then run it through Beautiful Soup's HTML parser. Next, we're going to look, so that's going to start us out on, so let's just go back here. So we're going to start out on this page over here. We just clicked on, say, this by the XPath, and now we've come to this page. Next, we're going to, as I said, run it through Beautiful Soup and find all of the links on the page. All right, so we'll start a counter for the districts, and we just go through each of those links. All right, and so we run our function to check whether this is a link for a village council election. If so, then we're going to click on the link based on the ID. So we found the link. We know this is one we want, and so we have the ID from Beautiful Soup. We pass that ID to Selenium. It'll find that link, click on it, wait 3 seconds for the page to load up, and then it's going to save. So this is basically bringing us up. Now we found, say, this link here. We click on it, brings us to this page here. This page is of interest to us, and so we save it. All right, next, now we want to start working with this page itself. So again, we get the page source, run it through Beautiful Soup, and now we have a second Beautiful Soup object. And now, again, we get all of the links. This is what gets us all the links to Beautiful Soup. And here we're going to go through every one of those links and check whether, so on this page there are some links, for reasons I don't fully understand. There are a few links that don't actually link to something. So there might be one over here. Yeah, right here. So, actually I take it back. This is not one of the problems. Maybe this one. No, well, take my word for it. Somewhere on here there is an href, a link that has, oh, here it is, right here. See, this link doesn't actually have an href associated with it. It's a link that doesn't link to anything. So if we try to click on that, we're going to screw up the code. So this is basically going to check and make sure that the link actually has a link. If so, then it's probably one that we want, but we'll check. So check whether it contains, the link actually contains something that tells us it is of interest to us. And then now these links, as I said before, we can't click on them by text because they have this these foreign characters in them. That makes it difficult for some reason. I don't fully understand why. So one shortcut, Selenium cannot find an item by the link, by the href, but it can, basically all hrefs on the page have XPaths that are simply, they just look like this. Basically, it's an A, and then inside the href equals, and then just the link. So we can back out what the XPath must be if we know the href. And so we use that, and then we just use our click by XPath lambda function. Wait a few seconds, save the page, and then we go back. So we click back, and then we do it again and again and again for all the pages on the result, okay? And then once we're done with all the links here, we go back again and do it again, all right? So this is gonna seem a little abstruse, but let me see if I can actually just run this and you can watch it in action. First thing this does, it's gonna go through and try to start up a Chrome browser. So for some reason, Chrome browser on my page starts up this annoying thing. I'm going to close it. But this is the page. So yeah, you saw it. Boom, it clicked through to this page. And now it clicks through to the first district instead of results there. Now it clicks to the first election, goes back, clicks the next election, goes back, boom, right? So it's going through here. It's going to go through every single link on this page and then go back to the previous page. So it's going to do that. It's going to basically have found all of the districts, and then it'll go back and click on new election here, okay? And that's Selenium.